Thank you. You may be seated. Well, good evening. It's good to have you here for our out-of-town guests. Welcome to New York City. And first order of business, I'm a Catholic, and I'll tell you why that's important. I need to start with a confession right here and now in front of God and you and everybody else. Hey, Coach Cower, how are you? Barbara Starr from CNN, welcome to New York City. Good to have you. On this one night out of 365 nights a year, there are two leading veterans organizations who gather in New York City and call a few of us up on the phone and say, hey, could you answer the bell and come over and spend some time with us? This organization and the foundation headed by Bob and Lee Woodruff. Bob and I are friends, our wives are friends. We left for the first time for Iraq days apart, and it was very helpful for our spouses to bond at that point while we were away, and we were with Bob and Lee during Bob's recuperation. Another way of putting this, both organizations had 364 other nights to choose. And right now, across town in the Beacon Theater, they are starting their event. Several of us here tonight, who always try very badly to give back to veterans organizations, are committed and have been for years to both organizations and both events. So Police Commissioner Ray Kelly just bid me farewell as he left from here to go across town, as sadly later this evening I have to do as well. They're not as nice, I'll be honest with you. It's I won't have a good time, and I won't enjoy it, and I won't be affectionate to them at all. I mean, let's be honest. But they're a lovely organization, and so my apologies that I'm only able to be with you. It may be a blessing. I don't mean to be presumptuous. That I'm only able to be with you for the top of the evening. And for just to get things started, especially for our civilian guests tonight, something I try to do every year so that we can salute you, will all active duty military and veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces please rise so we can salute you. And for the ladies and gentlemen who just rose, if you've served, you'll be happy to know that we are finally going to do on television the story of the MRE. I have brought them to this event before. I have brandished them, and I have spent just enough time overseas to love/hate them and to learn which ones to trade a loved one for and which ones to get out of your vehicle or chopper immediately, aside from the charms. For our civilian friends of a certain age, those charms hard candies we grew up with, the square ones in a silver roll, individually wrapped. For reasons known to God, and there's a lot of military folklore, part of which is that they're in the Navy survival kit, in the, if all else fails, you're in a raft with your buddy, here, eat this. If you encounter a pack of charms and they still put them in MREs, it is to go instantly out the window of the vehicle you're in. If you're in a Black Hawk, some poor sucker on the ground is about to get charmed, and you just don't want them around you. They're the worst luck, and yet perversely they still put them in like 1 out of every 100 MREs. So the desert in Iraq is lit. Now the Iraqi kids think, oh man, don't go near that. No. And so I've always wanted to know about these little tricks, why the mint pound cake is such a tasty treat. Will the cheese sauce actually work in construction work, holding two plates of metal together? Franks and beans. Which sick person developed that recipe and thought that was appropriate food to give our fighting men and women? And I wanted to know if my favorite, the spaghetti and meat sauce, was a popular favorite indeed. So thank you very much. Paul Reichoff apparently spends hours baking the spaghetti and meat sauce. So I went up to Natick, Mass, where folklore has it they developed the M&M for use in the U.S. military because they needed something to melt in your mouth and not your hand. And I met all these fantastic people who spend their days trying to come up with and develop the best recipes for this food that has to withstand several categories of testing. It has to live for 3 years packaged, has to be able to be crushed, dropped from a chopper, dropped from a C-130. It has to withstand boiling hot temperatures and freezing cold. And those little fiendish little heaters have to work and fill your Hummer with noxious fumes every time. And you learn all the tricks and all the shortcuts. So they have this new scalloped potato dish that is quite nice, actually. A new Mexican chicken, and my favorite product that is going to be needed for civilian use. They have combined the caffeine, clinical caffeine of a cup of coffee with a Slim Jim. This will light you up. These are fantastic. I had about 9 of them. They're short. They're the length of a cigarette, and put them in your pocket. Put a dozen of them in your pocket. You'll go, well, you won't go the next day, but you'll go all day. They are fantastic. It's the product this nation was waiting for, if you ask me. You combine 2 necessary elements of life, your dried meat product and your caffeine, and you're good to go. Wars will be fought and won on these caffeine meat sticks. Monday night, 10 o'clock on the NBC television network. One more point, and then we'll bring out the boss. I'll be brief. When you look out from this stage, as no one else gets this vantage point, it's such a glittering, beautiful evening. This looks a lot like a gathering of the 1%. And for a whole bunch of other reasons, it is. Sadly, it's a gathering of the 1% in American life that has chosen to raise their hands and serve. My friend Jack Jacobs, Medal of Honor recipient from the Vietnam War, always says that if you set out to go door to door in America, it would take you 150 doors to knock on before you came to an active duty military family. And that's a big difference in our country from the 9% of the population that was involved in World War II. Other big differences as well. We were making B-24s every 90 minutes at Willow Run. You have to ask yourselves, could we do that again if forced to right now? But societally, we all know that it's now a family business. And all we ask, those of us who try to help organizations like IAVA and those of us who have some hand in media in what Americans see and hear and read about the armed forces and this spectacular decade-long military effort we have launched on 2 fronts. All we ask about the military of our fellow civilians, 2 things: honor them and hire them. Very simple message. I've said this here before as well. I say to my civilian friends at organizations like NBC, there are these people called sergeants major. And here's what you need to understand. As a job category, they don't know the word no. You could say to them at an office building in New York City, hey, I need a dozen telephone poles by this afternoon. You think you could find? Of course you'll get a dozen telephone poles. They're sergeants major. They'll produce it. Well, so will every other rank of returning veteran. All they need is a chance to prove what this government has taken good time and expense to teach them, what they've done overseas, what we've asked of them, they will do for you as employers. IAVA, as we bring out the boss, to remind you, is the largest organization in the country dedicated to improving the lives of veterans and their families. So we want to, before we bring the boss out, we want to show you an upfront and unique view of the impact IAVA is having on new returning veterans and their families.